I began seeing, like, why does Visa make 51% net operating margin and they're a 40-year-old company? If ExxonMobil made 51% net operating margin, I think we would have people jumping out of buildings with ExxonMobil saying, you killed me, right? Like, we would have protests in the streets. The problem with the payments industry, with their little club, they don't compete. That I'm pretty convinced that I'm gonna go to my grave not being a slave to money or anything else, really. This may sound weird to a lot of people, but the longer I'm around Bitcoin, I actually have become a nicer person. I'm 65, man. And if you're 30 or 40 or 50, like, this is one of the greatest opportunities in the history of mankind.
This podcast is entertainment, not financial, tax, or legal advice. Views expressed represent statements of the speaker in their individual capacity, do not represent the views of Unchained, and should not be considered investment advice. Speakers often have personal, family, or business connections to Unchained, which may include direct financial benefits. Please see our disclosure at unchained.com/podcast.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Bitcoin Frontier podcast. This week I have on Gary Cardone. Gary, welcome.
Thank you, Joe. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. Glad to have you here. For those that may not have met you before, haven't heard you on a podcast or Twitter space, can you share a glimpse of like the journey of what shaped you and who you are today?
Sure. Gary Cardone, twin brother with Grant Cardone. Grew up in Louisiana, studied economics, left as soon as I got out of school. The next day I left college, which I found to be a complete waste of time. Went to Houston, got a job in Houston in the oil and gas business, and that would begin to shape my real education, my learning. There was a regulatory change in the energy business called FERC 478, I think, from memory. And it basically, in one stroke of the pen, completely altered the way energy moved post 1987, right? So they opened the market up, and this is going to be really relevant to Bitcoin. It's going to be relevant to payments, where guys like us went into I build the case that natural gas and electricity are the most profound commodities in the world, in that they define whether or not we're going to be a first, second, or third world nation. And we were able to commoditize that in such a way that today electricity trades on the half hour. ExxonMobil sold crude oil today for $82.37, not 38, not 40. They did not receive a premium, even though it's one of the best brands in the world. I look at the payments industry and I'm like, hey, look, gum, batteries, somebody moving your money around, these are not things that you should be paying premiums because there's a brand in there, right? If you can do it to nat gas and crude oil, and ExxonMobil can't get a premium for their credit lines, and they're, pretty sure they're going to be around tomorrow morning. I'm certain that an automobile maker or a shoe that's made in China is not going to get a premium just because you stick a fancy label on it. So that's that industry really cemented a deep understanding of supply and demand and how complex supply chains are built together. And like, to kind of fast forward where we're at today, we are digitizing planet Earth, and many of the constructs that were built in the past and how we handle things, it has to change because the speed of transactions are just expanding and accelerating as we move into what I call the digitization of planet Earth, where we're moving to microtransactions, right? Like the whole world's just going to be a rental economy where you're tracking, tracing, and accounting for a bunch of micro interactions with people, whether it's commerce or it's this, which is you and I exchanging thoughts, which I believe is really currency. Communication is currency, right? So went into payments, spent 12 years in payments. I've built, I think, 5 companies, done 5 exits. I've just been at the right time in the right place, and I observe things extremely well. I have a very open mind. I don't make judgment decisions other than supply and demand. If they are not distorted by some major players, supply and demand always speak to each other. And when they don't, when there's a lack of transparency, I have a maxim that says, hey, there is something bad going on when you can't see into a marketplace. or when you can't see into a family, when you can't see into a corporation, the black box always indicates some kind of crime or abnormal margin being made, usually because of a monopoly construct.
Makes sense. Could you dive a little deeper on why you got into the nat gas industry and then also why you got into the payments industry? I think those are like two interesting industries, but can you just explain more of like how you even got involved with those to begin with?
Well, I needed a job when I was 21. My first job was, when you get out of school, I think most people are utterly confused when they get out of school. I went to work for a pharmaceutical company, did all the testing. Now, this is in the depths of the greatest explosion of people looking for jobs. This is 1981, man. Okay, boomers are like, there's more boomers ever been created. We're all 20 years old looking for a job in the biggest recession that we'd seen in decades. Funny enough, every business I've ever built has been in a recession. And I think and so has my brother. It's really weird. And I haven't had any failures. And I think the no failures is because I learned how to run businesses and build businesses in marketplaces that had real interest rates. Money wasn't free. When money's free, you know why so many people lost their Bitcoin? It was priced at $30. Okay. It was mispriced. People, when you get something that's so cheap, you place no value on it. Right? That's why 4 million coins were lost. Nobody's losing $27,000, $34,000 coins today. I do not believe that's really happening. Also, people aren't giving away 10,000 coins at $34,000 anymore max. So I needed a job. I spent 17 years in that company, retired when I was 41. So this myth about you have to own your own business, you have to be the founder, you have to be the CEO, that is not true, okay? Most wealth is made working for someone. I wasn't mature enough to go build my own business when I was that age. I wasn't educated enough. I didn't understand the real world. Schools had not prepared me. The best message I can share with anyone is, hey, go find the platform. The pharmaceutical sales job, I lasted 3 days. I scored the highest they had ever seen in my understanding of drugs. Maybe that was because I played around with drugs when I was a kid. So like I understood it, but I hated the job. Literally gave it up. I had drugs in my trunk. I'm like, I am not going to spend the rest of my life. For me, it just wasn't the deal, right? So I found the job at Natural Gas Clearinghouse. I was working for a really big oil company. I did not like it. And the Natural Gas Clearinghouse was hiring people. I think I was the 12th commercial employee. Would have worked for them for free, found the right platform where my muscles and my skills could be really honed in. And 3 years into that, I moved to London on an idea I had, and I built two monster-built businesses for them in London. That was a tremendous experience. I would give two things to people. I would say, hey, first off, as soon as you leave school, leave the town you're in. Get out of the comfort zone. Grant was still living with my mom. Well, I think when he was 29, man, I was out in the world at 21. I was flying on a private jet when I was 22 with the oil company. I mean, I was seeing things that ranchers that own 40,000 acres in deep Texas, and they own, all the Sanchez O'Brien. I still remember their name as an oil company. So I needed to get educated. That was cool. Retired when I was 41, took off 8 years, studied religion, myself, history. I've never wanted to become a slave to a career or an industry or money. Like, that's been a profound goal of mine, not to get trapped. I'm not good being trapped. I'm a bit of a animal spirit, and I just need to be, free to kind of think and do how, operate the way I want. I went into payments because I was in an airport in LA with a 2-hour layover. I'm a horrible traveler. I was single, and I was like, hey, there's got to be a good looking woman in here to talk to. I got 2 hours, and I found this woman. I started chatting with her. I was talking business. She was this business person, and she had a pretty decent understanding of the payments industry, something I did not know anything about. But her challenge was she never knew how to, she had never made money. She worked 18-hour days, but did not know how to monetize or commercialize it. I see this in founders all the time. They undervalue their egos are way up here, and then they price everything incorrectly. They price everything cheap, or they're so myopic in what they're building, they don't see an application over here. So founders really, like, get with a commercial warrior, man. Get with somebody that knows how to operate and value products and understand what products can be morphed into and how you can sell them for multiple different verticals. When in that industry, we built a $500 million business, man. In the middle of an industry that was 40 years old, you would never have thought about, hey, let me go build a business to handle chargeback disputes. Now, why did we do that? Because I didn't believe, from my energy experience, there are no chargebacks, there's no refunds, and there's no force majeure in the energy space. If a hurricane smacks ExxonMobil in the Gulf of Mexico, you know what our answer is? So sorry, dude, where's my energy that I bought from you? Okay, you owe me $1 billion of energy tomorrow morning. I didn't ask where you were coming from, where you were bringing the energy from. You have an obligation to deliver that at the Henry Hub. So we started creating points of delivery for energy to get around the whole default issue, right? There's 0 defaults in energy. Zero. Why? Unlike the internet, where there's 50 million different terms and conditions, and I mean 50 million, okay? Every merchant that sells on the internet has a different set of terms and conditions, none of which you have ever read. And if you have tried to read it, it's gobbledygook. My question would be, if we're trading on the internet and we're a global marketplace, why the hell do we have 50 million different T's and C's when energy trades on one contract? Or are we trying to hoodwink the consumer? Are we trying to make it so difficult for the consumer? Furthermore, why don't my children have to consent, hit a cookie consent button? What are we doing? We're training them to be rats, okay, in the free cheese market. And you know what happens to rats and free cheese, right? They end up in the trap. So there are so many ways to fix all these problems. There's a 656 million chargeback disputes in the payment industry. $1 trillion, man, just wasted. Who's paying for that? The consumer's paying for it, okay? And it's really down to just not having standard terms and conditions. Everyone's treated exactly the same. Google's treated exactly the same as you are. They're not giving any favors because they're big. And we begin to understand that advertising is not working on those platforms. It's a train wreck of legacy hitting digital. And you can see it in the payment companies. The payment companies have not done well in the last 10 years. They have not. Even though the internet, now, Visa and Mastercard, now they have done exceptionally well from this. I personally think that all gets disrupted. And then the payments led me to Node 40 and Bitcoin. And I see the digital asset industry, Bitcoin, other tokens, blockchain, the way money's going to move, the ETF that is most certainly coming, all the big legacy players who want a bite at the apple of this new world. I personally think everything on planet Earth is going to be tracked, traced, accounted for, because we're moving to a digital economy. And if we're moving to a digital economy, you're not going to do it kind of, sort of. You're going to move to a digital economy, period. And we don't have the tools. We do not have the tools to measure microtransactions, pencil and ledgers. Like, it's not going to cut the mustard in the future. Nor is obscurity and opaqueness. We're moving to a world of transparency if this works correct. And that should be really freeing for 8 billion people. So I'm excited to be a part of it and help transform and shape the industry. In 17 or 18, I started buying Bitcoin, read the white paper, bought some more Bitcoin, and bought some more. And I've been, acquiring a large position for my family And now I'm starting to invest in companies in this space, and it's that's how Node 40 came about. That's going to be a multi-billion-dollar deal that cost me probably a total of $14 to $17 million of investments. So it's like this is I'm 65, man, and if you're 30 or 40 or 50, like this is one of the greatest opportunities in the history of mankind.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree. One thing that you said earlier that resonated with me and probably resonates with a lot of people that hold Bitcoin is that you didn't want to be a slave to anything, including money or a career or a job. I thought that was very interesting. Was that something that you discovered at a young age, or is that something that you didn't discover until like you had that retirement period?
I was 7 years old. I was 7 years old.
Nice.
Nobody's ever asked me this question. I was 7 years old. I was sitting in a church in Louisiana with my mom and dad, and the priest, this was one of those old Italian Catholic churches, man, with the stained glass, 50 stained glass windows and statues everywhere, you know, Jesus being held by Mary, he's bleeding. Just like a lot of, I'm 7, me and Grant are playing around, pinching each other. But the priest pops up, and his sermon for the day was, it is easier for a camel to get through the head of a needle than it is for a rich man to enter the gates of heaven. I cannot tell you, I know most people are going to be sitting there, the 7-year-old kids don't understand that. At 7 years old, I realized that would be my life's journey. It would become a real challenge for me. It just dawned on me, okay, I can either, maybe it scared me from being rich, actually. But it's pretty heavy duty, right? Easier for a camel to get through the head of a needle than a rich man to get into heaven. I don't know why I thought that would be my challenge, but I have refused to become a slave to money. And I've been tested so many times now that I'm pretty convinced that I'm going to go to my grave not being a slave to money or anything else really, other than being honest. You know, I've really spent a lot of my life being honest. My mom taught me that there's 2 ways to win the game. I can either cheat or play honest, and playing honest was more difficult. So I chose that path.
Yeah, fair. Yeah, I guess it is interesting to think about, right? Because if we are right about Bitcoin, then Bitcoin's price is probably going to go up in terms of everything significantly. Do you think that Bitcoiners will struggle with wealth at some point, like having too much wealth, and that could be, you know, many people's ultimate downfall? I mean, I'm thinking about like early Bitcoiners that, you know, had thousands of coins and, you know, somehow didn't lose it back in the day and kept it, or like they were dealing drugs on the Silk Road, went to jail, and then they came out of jail, and then they had like $1 billion or $100 million. Like that probably destroyed them to some extent. Do you think that will happen, you know, again in the future?
Won't happen to me. May happen to my daughters when they get all this stuff. It's a real problem. I was with Anthony Scaramucci about 2 months ago, and we were kidding around about our positions, the size of our positions, and hey, are we crazy? Because like we're the only older guys doing this, and you know, there's about 20 of us there. It is fascinating. Like, why are these 20 guys doing this, right? I said to him, I said, look, Anthony, because he said, hey, you think we're going to be okay here? And I said, Anthony, look, this is my view. If I'm wrong and it's 0, my children grow up just like you and I did, and we did okay. If I'm right on Bitcoin, my children actually have a very serious problem, right? They are going to have billions of dollars of decisions to make at 30, 35 years old. To answer your question, I think the Bitcoin community and some of its politics, which I have found to be, shocked me that there's politics in this industry. I actually would relate it back to the question you just asked. I think you have a number of people that have become exceptionally wealthy. They are not working for anyone, okay? And they don't want this world to change. They like it is, and they have to let go. Okay, you guys are creating more problems than you're actually helping now. You're polarizing people like me. You're coming up with crazy, insane things. I'm going to just say it. It's insane, okay? You want adoption. You can't then say Fidelity and BlackRock can't play, that they're the evil players. It's either you want adoption or you don't. And the adoption is not going to come from South Africa, from the underbanked. It will come, but it's going to come from institutions first. And they're going to make this much easier. I just got off of listening to something. Guys literally going, hey, in order to properly self-custody, you need to spend 100 to 1,000 hours. Fuck, it ain't going to happen, dude. It's not going to happen. My twin brother, I know you're going to ask me about my twin brother. My twin brother doesn't come into Bitcoin because he's like, wow, why do you need all this? Like, are you guys a bunch of thieves? This is too hard for him, right? Hey, don't lose your keys. Don't share your keys. Don't do cold storage, hot storage, this storage. You know, literally had a guy the other day go, man, you need to go get some metal plates, smash them down, dig a hole in your yard, and then buy a telephone and then destroy the telephone. I'm like, bro, rich people don't do this kind of stuff, okay? This sounds like crime. It sounds weird. So in order for adoption to occur, we got to understand these are institutions. These are families that have $400 million sitting in trusts, or $4 billion. They don't have most of these people will never self-custody, right? And I know that's, don't become a slave to anything, right? You would think I would be a big self-custody guy. I'm just being practical. I'm not saying what I do. The practicality of people self-custodying trillions of dollars in assets might just be a little early in the evolution of this industry. I'm not convinced that the wallets of today are the wallets of tomorrow. Are you? I'm pretty sure this is going to get easier and it's going to get more sophisticated.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. And I definitely feel like a lot of Bitcoin focused companies have started to transition to the more like collaborative custody type model where it's like, hey, I don't want to fully put all of my Bitcoin in Coinbase or FTX or BlockFi, but I could trust, multiple institutions to hold keys for me, so I'm not relying on one particular institution. I definitely think you're right. Like, if I'm worth $4 billion, I'm not going to have, one metal seed plate in my backyard holding all $4 billion. I'm probably going to be having multiple key agents that are trusted institutions around the world, maybe holding my keys for me to some extent.
Yeah, and look, if people are buying coins on a regular basis and they are then putting those coins from every year with this volatility into the same wallet, they've just like committed hara-kiri on their weighted average cost. So, do not commingle one year from another into the same wallet. Once you commingle, you're done. Okay, you've just lost all the ability to exploit the price volatility. Okay, like what I'm saying here is I moved $3.5 million from my accounts, and there were 5 of them on the day Celsius and Galaxy were blowing up, to buy Node 40. Now, why would I do that? Now, I was a hodler, hundreds of Bitcoin. I was a hodler until I got a divorce. Didn't know that was coming. I need to buy a company. Saturday afternoon, the whole world's failing. I'm going to transfer $3.5 million worth of Bitcoin and Ethereum to Node 40, complete my acquisition. That took 5 minutes, by the way. 5 minutes, and the CEO of the other company, zero friction. 2 minutes later, he was able to move those coins into stable coins and use the money. In the legacy system, that would have taken me 5 hours from 5 banks, and he would have received the money around Wednesday or Thursday. If you haven't done that, you have no clue what we're talking about. Like, until you do that on a Saturday afternoon, move some serious money from one institution to another, you really don't know what we're talking about. It's like talking about an acid trip, but you've never done one. When you do that, you're like, oh my God, this is so different. And I just want to remind everybody, that was on the worst day in crypto history. And I moved from Binance, FTX, I moved from everybody and wallets. So that was cool. Now, why did I do it that way? I was able to take $1.5 million tax loss, okay? And so if I spent $4 million on buying a 40% 40% interest in Node 40, my cost base just kind of got right because I took the loss of $1.5 million. So it really only cost me $3 million. And then I was able to reload all my Bitcoin, all of it. Like I've actually completed in 6 months replenishing that entire position at $10,000 cheaper than my prior positioning. So now I bring up the commingling because I had made these mistakes where I move $8,000 coins into a wallet or into an exchange, and it's commingled with $57,000 coins or $30,000 coins. I just lost my option to keep those coins for a long time into the future, right? So this is why most people don't really understand their cost base or their position. Don't commingle coins into wallets, okay? Especially when there's a lot of volatility, so that you can enjoy the benefits when you do come to liquidate. And you guys will liquidate one day. The most severe hodlers on the planet will liquidate. 46% of us are going to get a divorce. Sorry, that's the numbers, dude. I didn't make them up, okay? 46% get a divorce. And if you think about that, well, what's the judge going to have you do? Like I went through this. Do you get the $8,000 coins or do you get 69? Y'all want me to liquidate? Fuck off. I'm not liquidating. Now, I could say that, and they were like, oh, you just said fuck off to us. I said, yeah, who's going to pay the taxes, dude? You want to pay them? You go ahead. Here you go. Here's $10 million worth of crypto. I get everything else. You're paying the taxes. Or, do we split the coins? Her forensics team's going to go, hey, let's split the coins. Okay, which ones you want? Oh, I want the $8,000 coins. Cool. Don't call me when you got to pay the tax. The tax consequence is going to be severe on one of us. So this is really complicated because the professionals around you don't understand this space, okay? They see a Coinbase to Coinbase Pro or wallet to wallet as a liquidation event, a taxable event. That's not necessarily the case. You're just transferring from one bank to another. That's why I bought Node 40, because Node 40 wraps around the whole story about what happened. That's before we get to death. Okay, I am most certainly going to die. 100% of hodlers are going to die. If this stuff's worth $1 million each, and you got 3 coins, I don't care when you bought them. You need to treat that like a $3 million asset, not a $100,000 asset. How much Bitcoin do you have? 3. Well, how much is that worth? 100 grand? No, dude, you just told me it's worth $1 million each. Okay, so you don't treat it like it's a $100,000 property. You treat it like it's a $3 million property. That's a very different position. And no one's actually behaving properly. They're not behaving like mature professionals who were sitting on a $50 to $100 trillion asset class. They're acting like it's a lemonade stand, man. It's really, so I'm excited about the big boys coming into the market because we think of this very, very differently than it's being treated today. That's my way of saying. I think
I want to keep talking.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh no, you're good. I want to talk more about Bitcoin, but first I want to talk about Cardone Digital Ventures, your business consulting firm. I guess with the companies that you work with, are there like common challenges that you see, and also, are you telling them to integrate Bitcoin into their operations or their strategy or their treasury at all, or is Bitcoin kind of like a separate thing that you're involved in?
Yeah, so Cardone Digital Venture, I'm not a consultant. I've never done consultancy. I'm not a broker. Like, I take proprietary positions. I make promises to my clients. That's what's made me really successful, is that I don't deliver anything that I don't put my name behind, and I don't charge anything if my promise doesn't work. So I come with 1,000% money back freaking guarantee, because I think that's the way everything should work anyway. I just don't even understand why people don't guarantee everything they do. Maybe they just don't have a good enough product to make that guarantee. But so it's not a consulting firm. Look it's a investment vehicle. Like, that's how I bought Node 40. I'm looking at acquiring some other things, and if I can't buy companies that what I believe outproduce the multiple that I think I'm going to get from Bitcoin investment, like Node 40, I think Bitcoin's an 8Xer. So I look at Node 40 on the same time horizon and say, it has to exceed 8x. Otherwise, why am I putting up with the hassle of people and reporting and risk management? People get sick. I've got exposure to people getting sick, families, blah, blah, blah. Node 40 allowed me to get a piece of the Bitcoin blockchain advancement, the whole industry, without having any underlying commodity risk. Doesn't matter if Bitcoin's trading at $10 or $10 million, you are going to pay taxes, you are going to report, you need analysis, you need forensics. There's going to be millions of audits done, dude, okay? If you're holding Bitcoin, you will be audited. There's 30,000 tax people being hired right now to do this. There's a treasury document out that's 350 pages long saying what you will do, whether you're an investor or someone serving that investor, broker dealer. The granular reporting required is a perfect Node 40 solution, right? So I love building businesses inside of industries that are evolving because we can help shape it, right? Like I know what big business needs from a compliance perspective, and we have the ability to actually shape and form the way this market works. This industry and its immaturity, Max, you've done nothing to help regulatory compliance. All you've done is complain about the past world. Now, I would say you need to go on a vacation and chill out because, and look, I think he was really good for the beginning years and being, like really, hey, the system is broken. I don't know that it really helps to keep teasing people, right? Like I think what we need to do is start delivering some solutions that allow for us to make sure that everybody's playing by the same rules, period. And Max doesn't get a pass and Bank of America doesn't get a pass, right? This should be a very democratic kind of industry. Democratic meaning no one gets any type of stronghold over another player. That would be the ideal scene here.
Yeah, Max is definitely an interesting guy, interesting character. I think I've heard him in the past say that he takes on like the personality that he has to scare away like the traditional finance type guys. So normal people that somehow believe him can buy more Bitcoin at a lower price. I don't know if that's true or not, but I think I've heard him say that before. So you mentioned earlier that you got into Bitcoin, or you first learned about Bitcoin back in 2017 or 2018. What was like the tipping point for you to get more interested in Bitcoin?
Well, my first investment was a total punt. I bought about 10x more gold than I did than Bitcoin. This is in 17, 18. I became very, 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 very uncomfortable with what I was seeing in the payments industry, quite frankly, through the chargeback business. That business grew to a $70 million run rate, and we weren't even, our management had some governance issues. So I would say that even though I've exited that business, it was a really great return on my initial capital of, probably 10 or $12 million, 20xer. But I began seeing like, why does Visa make 51% net operating margin and they're a 40-year-old company? MasterCard makes 46% net operating margin and they're a 40-year-old company. ExxonMobil, just to keep everything, the audience, like Visa makes 51. If ExxonMobil made 51% net operating margin, I think we would have people jumping out of buildings with ExxonMobil saying, you killed me, right? Like we would have protests in the streets. But when Visa and MasterCard do it, it's cool, okay? You cannot, ExxonMobil, their net operating margin, 10%. Google, 24%. Visa, MasterCard, 51 and 46. I think something's not right? Like and by the way, those two companies control 72% of all card payments in the United States and Europe. Imagine if ExxonMobil controlled 72% of all the energy flows in the United States and Europe, and they made a 51% net operating margin. It would be carnage. The sad thing is, I don't think payments is anything close to being as valuable as energy. Like it literally defines, okay, who is a first world nation and who is not. Payments, if somebody misses a payment, is anybody going to freeze in the middle of the winter? I don't think so. Nobody's going to die. So I think this world, and this is where I disagree with Max, we need people that can digest this and understand what's happening. The market is going to get more efficient. We're either going to go back to, where antitrust doesn't even exist. Regulation has failed Joe Consumer. Regulation has been extremely beneficial for big corporate. If Google gets broken up tomorrow, those 4 companies are going to make more money than they ever did before. You know why? Because 4 companies is much more challenging to monitor than 1 company. Oligopolies are nearly impossible duopolies are almost impossible to break up. Whereas a monopoly, just let Google be its deal, and then you can police Google as one entity, or Facebook. So I think the system is just broken, man. We've had 150 years of trying it this way, and it may just be down to we've run out of all that energy to do things by pencil and paper, where somebody can just erase the number. We have very, very little transparency, yet we have the technology to make the world very, very transparent. So I would say, hey, why not, right? In the future, you should be judged by the value you bring to society, not just because you can charge, but it should be based on the value you bring to society in a highly competitive environment. Problem with clubs, OPEC, NATO, any club they create tomorrow morning, the payments industry with their little club, they don't compete, okay? They're clubs. They all go to the same dinners. They're all working with the same analysts. They all have the same consulting firms. I mean, these industries are not even any different anymore. I'm proof certain. I've been in 4 industries, built 4 different companies in 4 different industries with my background in education. That should not be possible. How can that possibly be possible? All these industries are identical. They have 5 things in common. A bunch of consultants running around from one industry to another with the same freaking 1940s playbook. Okay, merge. We're now merging. Now we're separating. Okay, we're going to go through a decade of separating and reselling the same company 4 different times. IBM's going to separate. Then IBM's going to merge. It's just a playbook, man. It's a total monopoly game. And when you realize that 4 or 5 consultings are advising all these governments and all these mega companies, it's the same team of people, right? So now you start to understand, now I see the game here. The game's a money game, right? So it's I wish I was your age, man, because I could build $6 or $7 billion industries and really extract some of the what I would call grossly unethical behavior, grossly, if not criminal behavior, going on the planet, man, from some of the biggest companies in the world. Which, by the way, I think the regulators are actually just giving them a blue pass. And it's harming competition, okay? I mean, it's really harming competition. It's going to be very difficult for smaller companies to survive, especially when people can just burn through cash. So it's a great time. When there's this much chaos, it's better for the newbies than the old guys, for sure.
Fair enough. Yeah, I've always been surprised at how large and profitable the fiat or dollar payment companies have been, like MasterCard, Visa, like you're talking about. But I guess it makes sense. It's just kind of a closed system and a closed game, and no one else can join easily, and they just kind of take advantage of everybody else, kind of like you're talking about. So I guess do you see Bitcoin startups or other startups being able to compete with them eventually? And what would be the strategy to break into that duopoly or monopoly?
I don't know that you can break them up. I think, I think people should complain about their margins, okay? It's a ridiculous margin. If you would be irate at ExxonMobil, that's why I use the example, and I think people would be irate. You would have Elizabeth Warren taking about, come on, man. They would be people rioting in the street. So, and I don't even think the conversation's even close. A barrel of crude oil versus a payment. I find it really interesting that, you can't find in these big public companies any information on how much money they make from fees, fines, and fraud. Go try and look it out. These are public companies, some of the biggest public companies in the world. Go find out their P&L, how much money they made from fees, fines, and friction, right? All the fraud, about $5 billion worth of fraud companies in the last 5 years, fraud has gone straight up. So either these companies are buying companies that are idiots, okay? They're just trying to buy these companies and take them off the market. Well, why'd they spend $5 billion? And refunds are up, declines are up, and chargebacks are up. Why? I don't think you have to take MasterCard and Visa out. I think what happens is that the gaming companies, the gambling businesses, and all digital activities are going to move to the blockchain and Bitcoin so fast. Once we're ready, you're going to see Visa, MasterCard, and many of the payment companies, P&L, get crushed. Absolutely get crushed, because those gamers are getting charged 8-10%. An adult merchant, and you can say, well, adult, it's bad. Adult is a legal merchant category code offered and sanctioned by Visa, MasterCard, and American Express if they accept that. If it's a merchant category code, it's illegal. Why would you then say, this is adult, we're going to charge more for it? Really? So is it legal? Is it any less legal than buying a banana? Because if I buy a banana from Amazon, the consumer's paying about 0.3%, nothing, hardly anything. But if he buys something that looks like a banana on an adult site, he pays 350 times that. Why? Make it illegal, okay? If you don't want to do that, but you can't say, well, Visa, MasterCard get to charge 3.5% before any of the other fees they charge, just because of brand risk. Brand risk. Are your shareholders, do they support pornography or not? Do they support adult or not? You can't then say, well, they only support adult if we get paid a lot of money for it. Like, it's either legal or it's not. You know, Google should not have any advantage as a merchant over a smaller merchant. I've seen regulators literally say, hey, we want you treating $50 billion or 50 million revenue companies differently than people that make less than 50. Like that's not cool, okay? That is a gross overreach of regulatory oversight of picking winners and losers. And scarily, it's picking winners being the big guys over the small guys. That if you were a little bit biased on the smaller guys, I might have a little, exception in there, but even that wouldn't be correct. You should just treat everything legal as everything is legal. So I think you'll see that blockchain and Bitcoin and other tokens, not that Bitcoin's a token, but that other methods of digitization on these transactions, these micro transactions, is going to really move first to those industries, and they are the most profitable centers for payments in the world. So once that happens, it's a slippery slope. Every industry loses its control sooner or later, man. This is just an eventuality. You have one of my questions. What are the lessons learned? Transparent. You can't stop transparency once you start. It's like a waterfall.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I definitely can see a future where the payment intermediaries just get disrupted. I mean, now there's this new technology that basically makes them irrelevant. Maybe there'll be a new form of like assistance with these new technologies to help, use these open networks like the Lightning Network. But there doesn't need to be that Visa, MasterCard, and probably a bunch of other people in the middle just taking their fair share or their unfair share.
Yeah, now it's going to be the guys in the middle that get squeezed first. I'm actually expecting Visa and MasterCard to make some moves here. The cool thing is, and we probably don't have time to discuss this, but as an industry, the payments industry is a oligopoly, right? It's a really large club. If all we do is target Visa and MasterCard is the thing we want to dilute, we want to dilute their power. They're so powerful now, I think the guys in the middle are going to get squeezed first, right? The vendors that appear to be banks, they're not banks, right? Most of these companies in payments, WorldPay, Worldline, Stripe, all of these companies, they're not banks, okay? They're vendors with some technology, and they're tripping through the payment stream. I could see a world where the mega merchants decide they don't need Visa and Mastercard. Why do they need them? Why does Google need Visa? They have all the consumers. Why does Apple need Visa or Mastercard or First Data or WorldPay? Like, why? They don't provide insurance. They don't provide anything other than tripping a switch on a transaction and monitoring it. I'm pretty sure that Apple they're already suffering all the chargebacks, so why don't they just accept the money, right? And this is going to be a big issue for the regulator, because 10 years ago they were like, no, we cannot let Google become the merchant. Well, I think this is going to be a world where only the big survive. In the merchant category class, especially if you're thinking that this becomes highly transparent, that means that everything gets commoditized. Back to where we started this conversation, right? AA batteries are going to be commoditized. You're not going to pay a super premium for a label. So I think we're really close where the payment industry, the entire dynamics between merchant, card scheme, bank, payment system, I think it's all getting ready to change in such that people begin cutting out a bunch of intermediaries.
Yeah, I definitely agree about
Once that competition starts, it never stops. It just, like when I came into the energy business, there was 23,000 oil producers in the United States. Within 4 years, man, it halved. Okay, because we actually drove real economics into a marketplace, and people began to understand, oh shit, there's too many oil producers. I think there's probably too many payment companies, right?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of intermediaries, and I think open networks are gonna help solve that. Last question, and maybe we can wrap it up. Like, what excites you the most about Bitcoin over the next 5 to 10 years? Is it like the payment side of like maybe the Lightning Network or stuff like that, or is it like more people using Bitcoin as a long-term savings technology?
I think it excites me. This may sound weird to a lot of people, but the longer I'm around Bitcoin, I actually have become a nicer person since being in Bitcoin. I can't really explain that other than like this will make no sense, but I'm finding myself, and maybe this is because I'm finding myself less judgmental of people, even though I was criticizing Max. I actually like Max in that he did a cool job 6 years ago. I just think it's a little OTT now. Like, we don't need to be that aggressive now. Like, I think the product now can speak for itself. My pitch is, hey, why is there so many guys my age that were running hedge funds or didn't even need to work? And they've literally left everything they're doing. Like, I don't focus on anything other than this, dude. This is not a part-time job. Like, if you're out there and you want to get into this space, do not don't distract yourself from your core business 20% of the time and come over here. You're not going to learn anything 20%. This is an all-in deal, which is kind of good for all of us that really get committed, because any part-time corporate player that moves their people around all the time, dude, they're going to make so many mistakes in this space. This is a 24/7, 8 days a week kind of activity. It's not for the kind of sort of guys, right? We're seeing entire companies develop digital divisions, okay? Like, I have a big rule on the accounting and the tax firms. If you guys are holding crypto and your accountant and your lawyer doesn't have a digital division, change them right now. Like, go find somebody that has digital expertise, okay? If you're holding Bitcoin, the professionals around you are the problem. You understand what you're doing, but you don't understand anything about laws and taxes and regulations and all that stuff. The people around you can't expect them to become blockchain experts on Polygon, right? I mean, It's not gonna, it's 43,000 tax firms. It's probably 40,000 lawyers. Dude, I actually get excited about this can help a whole planet. The other thing it is like I just got off the phone with an investor, a potential investor on Node 40, and he was like, hey, are you looking outside the United States? And my answer was, dude, there's trillions of dollars chased just in the U.S. Why would I go look in Europe? I don't have to travel to Europe. He's like, that is the right answer, Gary. I was hoping you were going to make a mistake and go, yeah, we're going to take over the world. Dude, you can't digest the U.S. business. So I think, the other really interesting piece would be this is a 15 to 20 year play here. You could build businesses, sell them, build another one, sell it, build another one, sell it, build another one. You can literally help thousands of families move into the new world order. This is going to be the new world order. For sure, okay? There might be some other world orders, but we're going to compete. This will be the new world order. Transparency, frictionless, margins, super hyper compressed, and may the best man win. And the best man brings the best value, brings the greatest transparency. He's going to win. That's pretty freaking exciting to me. That I can send money to someone in Portugal and it doesn't get raped and pillaged all along the way. I think that's got to be good. And it's connecting us, man. If we think about currency as communication, this opportunity to connect 8 billion people, I think I'm going to meet some really cool people through this journey. So why wouldn't you be excited, man?
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I definitely agree that margins are going to get compressed and the consumer is going to be the one that benefits from that. And then the consumer is probably going to be holding Bitcoin. So I think it's going to be an awesome journey. Gary, thanks so much for coming on. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you, Joe. Good to meet you. And if we're ever at a similar trade show in this space, make sure you let me know because I'd love to grab a cup of coffee with you.
Absolutely. Likewise. We'll do it. See you, Gary.